Hello there YouTube, I'm back once again. Before we get started, I'll take a couple hits. My K-Fun 0.56 ohm build, and then chalk nut e-juice from Vapaholic. Yummy. So, basically just want to give you guys some update on my box mods. Basically after I built my V3, I started looking at my first two, see what I could do to improve it a little bit. The main thing I was really going for is size. I want to make it a lot smaller. So I started my V1. I used a 1/4-inch poplar all the way around. So what I started doing is on my table saw, I trimmed down the sides, top, bottom, about 1/8 of an inch. Since it's 1/4 inch, I kind of trimmed it about half, just so, a little bit narrower, a little bit taller. And then after I did that, I was going to round off the edges again. Excuse me. But this time around, instead of using the regular round over bit, which just kind of round off the edges, same angle on both sides, I was going to use the table edge router bit, just like my V3, kind of give that, I guess, shallower angle towards the middle, the front face. But when I was, when I pushing it through the first pass, it shattered. my first box mod is pretty much destroyed. I figured out what happened. I was trying to take out too much material in a single pass. Basically, with routing, you make multiple passes to achieve certain dimension you're going for. You don't make one single pass. I mean, there are some process with routing where you can do that, but typically you want to do it a little bit at a time. Take off a little bit of material instead of taking everything, especially if you're going to take a lot of material off. Since the box is only glued, there wasn't a whole lot of there wasn't no fasteners to hold it in place. It pretty much shattered. So first box mod dead. So I moved on to my second box mod, but this time around, lesson learned. But it was already smaller than my first one. It was a lot smaller already, so I didn't really take off any more material on the side. Yeah, I don't think I did on this one. I don't think I took off any more material on the side, top, bottom. Oh, I'll explain later. But I ran it through the same router bit, but this time around a little bit at a time, and I was able to achieve that. See right here, it took off a little bit more material on this side of the box, because if it's just a regular router bit, it would have been just a corner. So actually feels more comfortable, while you're holding it. Definitely a lot smaller. And another thing I did was I beefed up the bottom a little bit. Again, when you put the battery in here, there's a little bit of pressure, outward pressure, because you have a spring there. This one is good to go. It shouldn't go anywhere because I put a rabbit, or actually a dado, when I, for this ledge right here, so it won't go up. But the bottom, since it's only glued down here, it kind of, I guess the glue kind of started falling apart, so I had to beef it up a little bit. So I put this piece down here, more gluing surface, so it shouldn't go anywhere now. Again, since this used to be a sliding door, I didn't want to take off this material in the middle here so I can slide the door. Basically, I just trimmed the door a little bit from the bottom, so now it just snaps in place. Boom. And then I sanded everything down. So with doing that, the laser etching I had on here are now gone. And I had to put this notch in here just like on the V3, because without it, you won't be able to take off the cover. So at least you got a place here where you can pull the battery cover off on both sides, So looking better now. And I kind of sanded the top of the battery cover just a little bit, so there's some ventilation up here, just in case the internal components gets a little warm or hot, heat can escape out. So again, I'm just trying to improve this, my previous ones to, actually it was a lot more comfortable. Now it's a lot smaller. And also lastly, on the 510, before it wasn't centered. It was kind of towards the front, towards the door. So I took everything off and I drilled a bigger hole so I could actually, make some adjustments. And I kind of centered, well, I did center it as much as I can. So now the 510 sits right in the middle. Not perfectly, but pretty close to center. So, bam. So let's take a couple hits on this thing. This is my last Fantasia e-juice. Basically, I still have a little bit of the Zeus juice, some kind of cooler, basically some menthol flavor. I put the rest of that in here. And I also have a little bit of their Miami Ice left. So I put a little bit of that in here. So just to kind of give that menthol flavor, refreshing flavor. So this is more like Frankenstein e-juice now, since there's like different flavors in here. But it tastes pretty good. Basically this is 0 milligrams. 0 milligram. Because when I ordered it, that's all they had left for this flavor. So let's make sure this thing still works. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys. Usually I build dual coils, but this time around, lately I've been building a lot of single coils, mainly to save some juice. So this is a single coil center post build on my Quasar. I have dual parallel 26 gauge and 5 wraps. And I used a 2 millimeter bit. And pretty good. And it comes out to 0.45 ohm for a single coil. So not too shabby. So pretty good for a single coil, you know. Flavors there. Vapor production is definitely there. Well, just an FYI, this juice is actually what? Didn't say. But I think this is a 70 VG blend. So it should produce a little bit more vapor than your standard 50-50. But yeah, this is more comfortable. I applied a couple coats of the same stain I used previously. I think it's the Ipswich. I don't know, but I know it's Ipswich, so it's a lighter stain. It's a Minwax stain, so boom, bam, 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 bam. All right, moving on. So basically, I'm currently working on my fourth box mod. This time around, I'm making two identical ones. Basically, somebody requested it, and they wanted two. So let me go over real quick sneak peek. Basically, for the battery compartment, I'm going to use the same design that I did on my V3. It's the hollowed out battery compartment instead of using multiple pieces of wood, you know, like a regular box, you know, back, side, two sides. It's basically going to be one piece. This is from, right now I'm using pine, since this is all I have right now. This is 3/4 inch pine. And I hollowed it out using a core box router bit. Basically, it's a rounded. I don't think this is called a core box, but core box is shorter. Basically, I think it stops right here, and that's a core box. This is the longer one. I think it's a round nose router bit, but this one's 3/4 inch, so it's about the right size for an 18650. So I use that to hollow it out. Boom, boom, leaving a small gap in the middle. It's not side by side. Basically, kind of like my first, my B3 one. I'm gonna use again same basic design on the battery compartment. I made a channel here for the wire, the negative wire, and I'm gonna plug it with another piece of wood, you know, cover it up so it looks clean. So that's the basic battery compartment. I think for future builds too, I'm gonna utilize the same design because it just makes sense. You know, it's one piece instead of three pieces, and you have a glue joint. You know, this one doesn't, so it's gonna be a lot stronger since you have less glue joints. Basically, just gonna have a glue joint for the bottom and the top. But I think this time around too, I'm gonna try to use some brad nails, you know, like a small 1/2 inch or 5/8 inch brad nail. I'm gonna put, you know, one on top, one on the bottom, basically to make it a lot stronger. You know, I don't want these box mods, you know, because I don't want it falling apart. Basically, again, this is an improvement from my previous one. You know. I just want this thing to last a lot longer, or a long time, you know. Basically, with the nails and glue, it shouldn't fall apart. So again, it's just an improvement. So yeah, still, I mean, I kind of figured out what I'm going to do at the bottom, but the top, I'm still not sure. So basically, this is going to be the bottom right here. So it look like that. Spring's gonna go right here. Again, I'm gonna hollow out a small hole for the spring so it doesn't move, because I don't like fastening my springs. So this was the one I was able to salvage from my B1. But since this is the only one I have, I'm not gonna use this for this one, since I'm making two identical ones. So I just made my own. So here it is, single piece again. Basically, this is a 16 gauge solid copper wire that I wound using a punch, center punch, whatever you call it. There's 4 wraps, kind of like a coil, but using one single piece of wire, kind of like this one. Obviously, this is, I don't know what the hell they use on this. I think it's one of those beryllium copper where it's really, you know, you can make it into a spring, but it's a solid copper wire, you know, regular household copper wire, you know, it doesn't have the springiness, but there's a little bit on there. So I just gotta make sure when I put it in here, you know, when I put it down there, I want to make sure where I place the positive contact is just at the right height, you know, because this only has a little bit of give. So I'm going to place it just right so when you put the battery in, it'll be perfect. You know, it'll be secured in there, it shouldn't fall off. It'll have a little bit of tension. So it's going to look like at the bottom. Kind of like that. Obviously, this bottom piece is not going to be this thick. I'm going to trim this down once I glue it together. After it dries, I'm going to trim it on my table saw to maybe pretty thin, as thin as I could. And then after I do that, I'm going to use a nailer, a brad nailer, nail it maybe one on each side, and then whatever I cut off, that piece that I cut off, I'm gonna glue it back on there, you know, to cover the nail hole, so it looks clean, and the grain pattern should kind of match, and then glue that at the bottom, and then again, you know, trim it off, because I don't want too much material at the bottom, because I want to, again, make this thing as small as I could. And then, yeah, so, and then the top, I'm still trying to figure it out. So basically, this is kind of like the top right here. And I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to use for the positive contact. I don't know if I'm going to use wood, PCB, whatever. But I think this time around, I'm going to use an angled. I'm going to angle a little bit for the switch. Got a thing right there and drill a hole at an angle. And obviously, the 510 is going to be on this side again. And then also to finish it off, you know, once I glue everything together, top and bottom, I'm gonna again trim the sides as much as I could. You can see there's a little bit of material there. I think this is like 1/8 inch from this to the outside. I'm gonna trim that off. You know, since again, you know, this is the end grain, and this is not an end grain, this is side grain. I'm gonna cover that up with a piece of wood so it hides this grain, you know, kind of dress it up a little bit on the side, both sides. So again, that's just another improvement, and actually that will add stability to the whole box. Basically, you can have one piece here on the side, one piece, and that will hold this portion and the top and bottom together. And again, that will add a little bit more strength to the box. And after I apply it, and after I glue that side, I'm going to trim it off again, you know, as much as I can to make it a lot smaller. And then I'm going to use the table edge router to round everything off. So just to kind of give you guys an idea if you guys want to make your own, you know. Because there's not a whole lot of video there that explains how to make one of these. But again, you have to have the right tools. You know, you can't use a freaking handsaw to cut all these. Maybe you can if you're an old school carpenter. You can cut straight with a regular handsaw. I can't cut anything straight with a handsaw. That's why I have a table saw. Table saw, router table back there. So yeah, so give you guys a just a sneak peek as far as what I'm working on. Actually, let me show you guys my table saw. Just gotta what I do. Basically, this is a Delta. You can get this at Lowe's for like $550. Pretty good saw. And you know, the saw to begin with is pretty good already, but you know, if you're into woodworking, you'll definitely find out that you can't just build stuff accurately with just a table saw. You can, but most woodworkers out there have jigs, you know, to make building a lot simpler, a lot easier, you know, especially if you're gonna make multiple cuts of the same length and you want the accuracy. Basically, this is the jig I built right here. Basically, instead of using my fence, I use this to cut, you know, especially if you're gonna cut smaller pieces. Basically, this thing slides back and forth, you know. It rides on the miter slots here. So this is like the first one I built with this table saw. So basically, I don't even use a chop saw, one of those chop saw. I use this. You know, this thing slides back and forth. And basically, there's a way. Oh, what the fuck? Shit. Got a piece of wood here. Move that thing. And also, there's a way to make sure this is 90 degrees from your blade and this fence right here. There's a way to align that. I mean, you can find that on YouTube, and that's what I use. Yeah, so all the cuts are pretty much as close to 90 as possible with this thing, because this thing kind of moves, this one doesn't. So right there. So I have other jigs underneath my workbench there for 90 degree, you know, for bevels basically. So yeah, this is for just regular straight 90 degree. So basically just put a piece of wood right here, and you have this stop. You know, if you're gonna make multiple cuts of the same length, you just set this stop to whatever measurement you want, lock it in place, and then let's say for example it's 2 inches, put the piece of wood right here, run it through, put another piece of wood right here. It's gonna be the exact same dimension, you know. So if you want this 2 inches, boom, 2 inches, another one, boom, 2 inches. So if you want to get into more of a fine woodworking, you definitely have to make jigs, and this is one of them. This is made out of pine for the fence. This is the hell did I use in there? It's 2 3/4 inch pine and a 3/8 inch. So I'll make it straight as possible, and the back one doesn't really matter. It's just there to hold it, to hold everything together. And yeah, so this is my jig. This is where I make my box. So if you want to get into making box mods, you definitely obviously need a table saw and a jig. And this is my router table right here. You know, it's a basic router table. Got a couple of routers. You know, I got the trim router, smaller one, it's a Bosch, really good router if you want to get into woodworking. If you need a router, this is one of the best. It's a Bosch Colt 1 horsepower trim router. And I got my bigger one down there. It's also a Bosch. This one is the hell is this thing? I don't even remember. It's the 1617 EVS router. So this one is also badass. You can adjust it from the top using this thing right here. You can, instead of adjusting from the bottom, you know, unlock the thing and then you just adjust it from the top. And this is the spiral bit, 1/4" spiral bit that I use to make those channel, to make the channel. So yeah, just want to give you guys a obviously this is my homemade cyclone dust collector. Instead of the dust going in there wasting your filter, you build one of those. So most of the dust and wood chips goes in there first. You know, as you can see. Give you guys a sneak peek on what this thing looks like. You can also get this online. See, a lot of dust goes in there. Let me fix this thing up. And barely anything goes in my vacuum. You can see there's barely anything in there. And obviously you need to, you know, you're gonna get into your woodworking. You need some router bits. Got a few in there, you know. So cool, guys. Just want to give you guys a tour of my shop so you guys can see what I have and what you'll need to make your own wood box mod. All right. So before we leave, let's take a couple more hits with my cape on. All right, fellas. Thank you for watching.